So in the previous video, we talked about the steps for the z-test for proportions. So here are the 5 steps, which you probably hopefully have already written down. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do a problem. So what you can do, you can either take a picture of this if you don't want to write it down, or you can just pause the video and write the whole question down. And I'll give you, and this is a question to kind of show you how we do the 5-step process. And also something like this will be in your exam where you have to extrapolate all of this different information. So it says that Harvard School of Public Health claims that the national proportion of students who smoke marijuana is 15.7%. Obviously, this problem is very outdated. So suppose that a random sample of 400 students from a college is taken and 76 admitted to marijuana use. So does the data provide enough evidence to conclude that the proportion of marijuana users among students is higher than the national proportion? So reading all of this can get a little confusing. So you might want to break everything apart. So the way that I'm going to do it is that I will give you guys a couple of supplemental questions to kind of guide you through all of the step procedures. So this is all I'm gonna ask you. So the first thing that you want to do is state the null and alternative hypotheses. Okay, so if you want to think about what the null and alternative hypotheses are, you want to be able to think of what exactly is being claimed. Okay, so if you think about it, what we believe, what does Harvard School of Public Health believe? Well, the national proportion is 15.7%. So this is something that we've already known. Okay, so that tells us that because we're dealing with proportions, the parameter of interest, the population parameter, is just going to be P. So remember that the null hypothesis is always going to be an equal sign. So this equal sign is going to be this 15.7%. Let's convert this to a decimal. That's going to be 0.157. Okay. Now, what would happen in the alternative? Well, in the alternative, we have to look for the key word. So the key word usually here is going to be in the last sentence. Okay, it's usually on the first or the last sentence. So does the data provide enough evidence to conclude that the proportion of marijuana users among students is higher? So the key word here is higher. So we're going to have P be greater than this 0.157. Okay. Okay. So that's all. That's all you want to do. Find the null. Here is my HO and here is my HA. That's it. That's all you want to be able to do. Okay. Now the next thing that we want to do is find the test statistic. Okay. So if you remember, the test statistic is Z is equal to P hat minus P divided by the square root of P1 minus P over N. Okay. So now we want to think about what exactly P hat is. And if you remember, P hat is just your data. So what data did we collect? So if you want to write here, data, think about what the data that we collected. So what did this researcher do? So we got a sample of 400 students, and from those 400, 76 admitted to marijuana use. So my P hat in this case is going to be what? Well, P hat is going to be equal to this, what was it? 76 out of 400. So if you go into your calculator, the 76 out of 400 is just 0.19. So that's your P hat. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just put that P hat into the formula. So P hat is just 0.19. That's what we just calculated. Now we're going to minus P. P in this case is right here. It's in the null. Is 0.157 divided by the square root of 0.157, 1 minus 0.157 divided by N. And in this case, it's going to be equal to 400. Okay, so let's put this into our calculator. So we're going to have 0.19 minus 0.157 divided by the square root of 0.157, 1 minus 0.157 divided by 400. And what this is going to give me is 1.81. Okay, that is my test statistic. That's my z-score. So you can already see that my z-score, I mean, I don't know if it's unusual. It's very close to 2, but I'm not quite sure yet. Okay. So we don't know if we should reject this guy or not. Okay. So now the next step that we want to do is find the p-value. Okay. So now remember, the p-value is basically the probability of the z-score. Now we have to think about where exactly is this z-score. So we have to draw a normal curve to kind of try to figure this out. So if you remember, you have your p-value. We know that we have to use normal CDF. We need to figure out what our lower bound is. We need to figure out what my upper bound is. We know what the mean is. The mean should always be 0. And we know what my standard deviation is. My standard deviation is 1. We just need to figure out what my lower bound and my upper bound is. The way that we figured it out depends on the alternative. Okay? So if you look at the alternative, my alternative is a greater than. Okay? A greater than means that you're looking at all of this area to the right. So that means that my z-score, this 1.81, is right there. Okay, so if you look at this area, if infinity is over here, let's figure out what we should be putting in our calculator. This is going to be norm CDF. My lower bound is going to be 1.81. My upper bound is going to be infinity. My mean is just going to be equal to 0. And my standard deviation is going to be equal to 1. So we're going to do normal CDF. Mean 0, standard deviation 1. Lower bound is going to be 1.81. And my upper bound is going to be infinity. So my answer is going to be 0.035. Okay. Okay. So now what we want to do, compare p-value with significance level with your significance level. What is your decision? Okay, so one thing that I think I forgot to do is I forgot to give you an alpha value. I don't know if I gave you the alpha value. Okay, so I didn't give you the alpha value. Usually I give it to you. Okay, so let's say alpha here was equal to 5%. Okay, so I have to give you this. So if in this case, in this problem, I was very bad, I did not give you the alpha value. I should have given it to you. So I will always give you this. And if you don't see it in your exam, please tell me, hey, what is my alpha value? Okay, so compare your p-value with your significance level. Okay, so your p-value, we know, is 0.035. Okay, your alpha value, your significance level, is 5%. Making 5% as a decimal is going to be 0.05. Okay, so now you got to think about which one is smaller. Okay, you can kind of see this p-value is smaller. Because the p-value is small, what is a decision that you can make? And when the p-value is small, we reject HO. So we reject HO. That's what we do. We reject it. That's the decision that you're going to make, and that's all. You're comparing both of them, and then you just reject. Now my last one says, what can you conclude? Well, because we reject HO, what can we conclude? Well, let's go back up. Since we're rejecting HO, so we're saying you are wrong. So what can we say? We say that there has been an increase in the national proportion. Okay, so we say is we have sufficient evidence to say that there has been an increase in the proportion of marijuana users. Okay, that's what you're going to say. So we have sufficient evidence to say that there has been an increase in the proportion of marijuana users. Like you're wondering, where did I get this? Well, so this is always going to be the same. So if we reject it, we're going to say we have sufficient evidence. If we don't reject, we say we do not have sufficient evidence. And then to say what? Well, what I do is I just take the ending part of what we're trying to figure out higher than the natural proportion, I usually just take this and I just copy it on the conclusion. Okay, so this is usually how the 5-step process works. Hopefully seeing it all together kind of helps. I will do one more example with a 2-sided test, because basically being at less than is the same thing, it's just that this guy is negative. We'll do one with a 2-tailed test in the next video.